We are live on Yonkers Voice, and today our guest is Margaret Fountain-Coleman.
How are you?
Right? Did I say it right? Because I always mess up on names.
Cheers.
I did it good,
you did
guys.
it great.
I'm improving.
You did a great job.
Let me tell you, it took a couple hours of training since last night. I'm saying Margaret.
And not that other thing.
Not the other thing, because I got to try it. If you mention it, I'm walking out.
Right,
so,
right.
zip.
Got it.
Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for coming. But before we go further, I want to make it clear to the people who are watching us that we at Yonkers Voice are a platform where your voice, their voices, our voices are amplified. We take no sides in the political arena. We just make this platform available to all those that want to talk to the community and tell them why they feel they are the best person for the job. At the end of the day, it's totally up to you.
Absolutely.
Who you're going to vote for. But I can tell you one thing for sure. Your vote matters.
Absolutely.
Don't sit behind of your computer, chit-chatting, talking on social media, unless it's Yonkers Voice. Okay? But don't be there just talking. Exercise your right to vote. That vote counts. That vote matters.
It absolutely does.
Right?
I agree 100%. Couldn't have said it better.
Thank you. Well, Margaret, you are running for mayor of our great city.
Yes.
And I am sure that if you're running, it's because you don't think that things are going the way they are supposed to be going. Otherwise, you wouldn't run. You just vote for whoever. So,
yes.
Correct?
That makes sense.
If
that
you're running,
sense.
it's because you think
That's right.
that you can do a better job representing the people of Yonkers.
Absolutely.
Tell us why.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I know it took us a minute, but we were coming.
We made it happen.
It happened. So, good afternoon, Yonkers. One of the reasons that I'm running, and Rue is correct, sometimes we sit on the sidelines for a while in order to assess. I've been in Yonkers 9 years, but being in politics is nothing new for me. I served in Tuckahoe, New York, which is a neighboring community as a trustee in the village of Tuckahoe. I also served in Halifax County, Virginia on the city council. Politics is nuanced in every community that you go to. And in the city of Yonkers, I believe there is a tale of two cities. Two absolutely dynamics are here are being represented here, right? So you have people on one side of Yonkers that are feeling the fulfillment of what Yonkers brings, while you have others who are continually trying to make their voices heard. It was when the term limit conversation came up that solidified for me that there needed to be a change in leadership here in the city of Yonkers. There are so many nuances and factors that occur when persons extend their stay. And so I look at Yonkers as a melting pot of diversity, right? Diversity and a melting pot of experiences. However, everyone is not equitably represented here in the city. So I knew it was time. People asked me, why didn't you run for city council? I did that already. Think about other avenues. I think the mayor's position is the best fit for me. I bring to the table so many different nuances as far as leadership skills, my prior professional experiences, my political experiences, my education have made it just right for me to be mayor here in the city of Yonkers.
Well, let's start this interview with talk about issues.
Okay.
And there is no one better than you that understands education issues.
Correct.
Because you are an educator.
Correct, for 17 plus years.
Exactly. So you understand the ins and outs of issues involving education. What can make it better? What can make it worse? Things that should be done or not be done. Let's make an assessment of what's going on in Yonkers on the education field and how would you make it better?
Well, let's start in the classroom. because that's where I am.
So whatever place you want.
Right. So one of the things that will make it better, not only when I say infrastructure, people immediately think about the building. Yes, our buildings are 80 plus years old. We need new classrooms, new building. We need less students in classrooms. So that means new buildings have to be built in the city of Yonkers. The curriculum that is provided for the city of Yonkers is one of the focal points that I'm hoping, as the new mayor, when we appoint the new superintendent, that he is charged in expanding our curriculum base. And what do I mean by that? We usually pilot programs here in the city of Yonkers when it comes to curriculum. So that means that educators are maybe using a pilot program of a curriculum no more than 2 to 3 years. So once you get settled in that routine of knowing that information, providing information to students and resources, then Yonkers decides, okay, that curriculum, we've done that, let's move on to the next pilot. That has to stop, because what happens is once you get into a place as an educator, knowing what you're teaching your children, knowing how that flows for them, when you're having that little person or young person in your classroom, curriculum means a lot. And your comfortability being able to relay information to students. So curriculum is one of those things that I look at. I take seriously what we're purchasing here in the city of Yonkers, and why there needs to be a superintendent who will be coming that is going to be charged in understanding what that needs to look like and the dynamics needs to happen. When we're talking about infrastructure, again, we talk about buildings. We know that we need new buildings because of classrooms. We know we need to improve. We've been utilizing Band-Aid we using Band-Aids as fixing buildings when we still have some buildings that don't have proper HVAC systems, that we're still dealing with flooding in some buildings. We're still dealing with some classrooms. Most classrooms don't even have air conditioning, right? I'm in one of the oldest buildings here I teach, and you have to go do a medical form in order to even have an air conditioning in your classroom. So those are the things that we have to do. We have to ensure that our aides are properly trained. Now, I teach special education, which is a separate type of specialty that I call it, as far as being an educator. And so we have to provide professional development across the board. We do a lot for that for teachers, but we don't do a lot for that for our classroom aides. And so those are the things that I'm hoping, as the mayor, that I can partner with the new superintendent to get him on he or she, nuance in those kinds of things of the needs of the students here in the city of Yonkers. The other part of education that I think that has been strained here is because each year we deal with a budget shortfall, right? The budget was just passed by the mayor, the city council, sent up to Albany. The city side provided $5 million of funding, which still leaves about a $28 million deficit on the school side. Where is that money going to come from? You know, what are we going to do to be able to provide the resources that are necessary for our children and our families here in the city of Yonkers? We need a plan, and stop blaming Albany. Albany, the state comptroller, has said it over in time. I just read the report the other day again to ensure that I'm looking what I'm looking at. We continue to use bonding mechanisms as a form of revenue. We can't do that. We have to partner with entities within and without to help us to bring the funding that we need. We need to explore opportunities. We've brought in billions dollars worth of revenue through new building.
But Margaret, let's break this down, because we don't want to lose our audience. Okay, we want them to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely.
Now, since we are talking about education, and I know that it's something that you take to heart because you are an educator,
right?
We all know, and we got caught by surprise, that our superintendent is leaving. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you feel about that, and I'm not going to ask. Okay. But I am going to ask, if you were the mayor today, mm-hmm. and you were in position to appoint the new superintendent to the Yonkers public school system,
right?
Who would you be inclined to vote, to appoint? I know you don't make that decision, right, but you make the decision to appoint.
Absolutely. You mean appoint in
to the
interim?
board.
or appoint, because there's supposed to be a national search happening right now.
Well,
right.
We know what it's supposed to be happening, but there is a big difference between what it's supposed to be happening and what actually happens.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I agree.
So let's say it's happening. Let's say you had the power to appoint and present and say, this is your superintendent. We know that's not how it works. You present to the board makes the decision.
Absolutely.
But let's say you had that power. Who would be the right person according to you?
A person that has a heart for Yonkers.
Yeah, but that's not a name. Give me.
I can't give you a name.
Give me three. Give me three people that you know, because look, I can give you a name.
Give me a name.
Dr. Nader Saeed.
He wants to be the superintendent.
I don't know if he wants it to be, and I'm not going to, because I have no such conversation.
Right.
I'm talking about people that love the education, these public schools, interested, just like you, educated at heart, and I don't think he would mind. But if he shows interest, would that be a person that you would say, I will think about it?
I can't make that call.
No, you're not making the call. You're not making the call.
But I can't even phantom even thinking through that.
Not yet.
Not yet. No. You're good.
I tried. I tried. It didn't work, but not for lack of trying.
You're good.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
We have another big problem in Yonkers. You and I have spoken about it. I have been in a place where you have been. I have seen the rallies. I see the people talking, which is housing and affordability. Affordability is a very relative term. What might be affordable to you might not be affordable to the next guy.
Right.
And I see generations, people that generations of them have lived in Yonkers that now are forced to leave Yonkers.
Absolutely.
Because they can no longer live in the same town that the grandma lived, great-grandma lived. It's too expensive.
Absolutely.
So what is your position on that, Margaret?
Well, thank you for that question, because I think that is, other than education, that is probably one of the more nuanced conversations that we continue to have. But you are correct in saying that affordability means different things to different persons, and we have found that to be true from this current administration. I think when we are not on the same page about that conversation, when we are not connected to our community in such a way that the community is speaking, that's why the conversation is lost and becomes a deaf ear on persons in our administration. I like to tell the story about my classroom aide. Right? I'm going to start there. So my classroom aide is a single parent, a mother of two, a boy and a girl. She lives in an affordable housing building here in the city of Yonkers. She makes $34,000 a year, right? She does not qualify for Section 8. She does not qualify for all the resources that may be available to others. And so she has to work a side job in order for her to live. And I don't mean live comfortably. I mean just to live, to survive. And that's different. The bedroom unit that she was offered was a 2-bedroom, right? And the 2-bedroom is for a boy and a girl. So she had to make a makeshift divider so that she could divide between her 14-year-old and her 10-year-old child. And so that's not the way we're supposed to be living. That is not what expressly that Yonkers, when we say affordable, how that should play out. I think one of the conversations that has been lost in all of this, and I want to just go back a couple of years politically, what happened is that when we allowed people to begin to, on our city council, to begin to negotiate for power, we opened up a floodgate for development here in the city of Yonkers. It lacks the integrity of ensuring that every resident has a place to live that is affordable. And I think that's what happened, that when my opponent became majority leader, she made a deal with now seated Mr. Rubo, who is still chair of the real estate committee. And what insurged was an insurgent of developers coming into Yonkers. Listen, I am pro-smart development. Let me just say that, because people's like, oh, she's anti-development. No, I am pro-smart development. Smart development is when you can bring in a mixture of housing, right, into an area, whether it is rentals, whether it is home ownership, whether it's rent to own type of home ownership. That's smart development, not luxury apartments where you're saying it's for the citizens of Yonkers. We are 46% of our residents make less than $75,000 a year. How are luxury developments for those persons that make less than $75,000 a year? And then when you have affordable housing that are not meeting, they're based on the AMI of Westchester County, that's still not affordable. So that's where we are, but we need to change it. We need to change it.
It needs to be changed. I have visited some of the apartments on Alexander Street. Supposedly, those are for low income, in part, families. But you go inside and you see apartments as you just described,
right,
that are more designed for single people that perhaps work in New York City.
Correct.
They come to the Metro North to go there, definitely not for families.
That's right.
So we do have a problem.
Yes.
Now, taking what you just said, and you spoke about your opponent and about the deal made by her and John Rubel prior, many people in Yonkers are not yet determined or made their mind about who they're going to vote for. So this is an opportunity to tell the people what is the difference between you and your opposition in order to inform them and help them make the decision so those votes come your way.
All right. So 9 and 12, I just came up with that. And people said, what do you mean 9 and 12? 9 years we have been a community has been represented by former majority leader Corazon Pineda Isaac for 9 years. 9 years your community is classified as one of the highest crime-ridden districts in the city of Yonkers. 9 years you have seen an influx of homelessness, not only in Getty Square area, but also as well as in the Nordine Hill community.
But don't go too much into that because that's part of my script. And then I'm going to look and say, but...
She answered the question. But I'm saying 9 and 12 years.
I hear you.
You see what I'm saying? And then you had 12 years when Mr. Spano came in office, his first term. He said on a mayoral candidate forum that he only needed 2 terms. You can look at any YouTube video. He said, I will only be in office for 2 terms, which by my calculation is 8 years. He then prompted, or I don't know how that came about, and it's not just him, but because she ran as well off of the 3rd term initiative. And so that's 3 years, that's 8, that's 12. And now again, we're running again. My question to the audience, if your life has improved over the 12 years since he's been in office, then you know who you're going to vote for. If your life has improved as the city council person has been in office for 9 years, if you can see that your life is better, then that's who you're going to vote for. But if you know for sure that when you look at your everyday life existence here in Yonkers, then you know it's time for a change. Absolutely time for a change. And that's across the spectrum, right? Whether it has to do with race, economics, class, it is across the spectrum. Everyone needs to take a soul-searching thought process about who is going to represent them well.
And that time for the change is now.
It's time for a change now. Because let me tell you what. Because if you don't know, if you don't follow what the developers are doing and the development, we've already had approved by the IDA 5 projects that are going to City Council's desk to be approved. And so can you imagine what our city is going to look like and be like if 5 major developments are going to be simultaneously happening at the same time? You can barely get down Warburton now. You can barely get down Nepperhand now. What do you think is going to happen to our city?
And on that note, we are going to talk about a big development that came to Yonkers that was supposed to improve the people of Yonkers, that was supposed to give jobs to the people of Yonkers, that was going to make the city of Yonkers much, much better. People are disputing that. And I'm talking about Lionsgate. Okay? Lionsgate to the people of Yonkers, at least people on this side of Yonkers, it's not what was promised. It's a failed promise. But who am I? I don't understand the politics. I don't understand the complexity, but you do. So tell us, what is your opinion when it comes to Lionsgate? Is it going to better Yonkers? It's not going to better Yonkers?
It's not going to better Yonkers in the sense that we're talking about economic development, right? For people, everyday persons trying to find a job, unless that is a skill set that you have. Because Lionsgate is a skill set, right? It is not, and that's not to talk about restaurant workers, because that's a skill set. Being a waitress, I don't want everybody waiting on me. Okay, because that's a skill set. So every job is a skill set. And I think what Yonkers bought into, they bought into the illusion of Hollywood. Mayor Spano said, oh, the boom of two cities, because I use the tale of two cities. Well, the boom of two cities is that is a bomb. Lionsgate has been a bomb because the people have not been able to engage into that studio, other than buying up all properties, right? People know that my husband and I are both pastors here in the city of Yonkers. Our church,
right across from.
Oh my goodness! And now they're developing another studio. Well, the studio is almost built. They build studios faster than they can build a school. A studio can be built faster. That studio already has its frame. It's already got the steel beams. It's already ready. All they have to do is lay the other stuff on top. You can build that faster than you can build a school. So, and as I digress. However, that's the problem, because our attention is on capitalism rather than the people of Yonkers.
Well, but the school is built with city funds, and
yes,
studios are not.
Well, let me say this. Had we contracted the deal the way it should have been dealt, then absolutely we will have more than a school. Absolutely. Because if you can build that many studios in this city, for every studio, we should have gotten a new school, or at least one that is refurbished so that children can have accessibility in their buildings.
Well, we have new schools coming up, right? We
have
a new high school, but will that be enough?
Absolutely not.
For the growth that our
that
city...
we're upon?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Because if we're building all of these luxury apartments and people have to come in to live in there, I just said 46% of our people in Yonkers make less than $75,000 a year. I looked at apartments down here when I first moved back. I was making teacher salary. I couldn't afford that. $4,000 for a 2-bedroom?
Yeah, it rents unbelievable.
No.
Rents unbelievable.
Absolutely not.
Now we are going to move into something else that some elected officials in Yonkers say, well, that's really not our problem. It's a county problem. Well, I say, no, look, if they are here in Yonkers,
they're our babies.
They're your babies.
There it is.
They're your problem. They are our problem.
They're our problem.
And that's the homeless. Okay, look, County Latimer, before he was elected, there was promise, we're going to do this, we're going to resolve that. I drive around. I see no difference.
No.
Yeah, they moved from the sharing community to up to Casimir. Okay, but the problems are still there. They mask the problem. They don't solve the problem.
Right.
So what is your view on that, and how would you address the homeless issue in Yonkers?
I think one of the things under my administration that we're going to do, we're going to become more tied to what is happening on a federal level. There is a mayor and CEO housing coalition for the United States that major cities are a part of, like LA, right? San Francisco, DC. There's a coalition, and I'm sure right now Mayor Spano is looking that up, but it is a mayors and CEO coalition that is taking place. Our city, Rochester, Buffalo, and the city of New York are the major cities that are not a part of that coalition. So we're going to become part of that coalition, because in that coalition, they are thinking through, they're like a think tank, right, of mayors and CEOs, attempting to address homelessness and housing insecurity in their areas. One of the programs that I did down in Halifax County when I was a grant writer, I also wrote the first grant for the homeless project program. And what I did was not only partnered with local hotels, which they do here, right? And to address immediate placement. We also, it were already there, housing, but we refurbished it. We refurbished housing for homeless individuals, and I'm talking about single moms and their children, or men who were coming out of incarceration, because we never talk about that as part of homeless. We talk about the mental health piece, but we never talk about people who are coming out of incarceration, because that's my background as well, who are deemed homeless if they don't have a resident to go to, right? And so what we did, we refurbished homes throughout the county, and then we had placement there. Like, we gave temporary placement for 30 to 90 days. And with that placement, you had job readiness programming going on. You had faith-based who were partnering with us so that we could have established some type of social, and back then it wasn't called social emotional, but it was social. It would be social emotional now, that would be able to help people in religious and spiritual guidance. We had mentoring programs with men and women to mentor persons that are homeless, because the connection, the interconnection with homelessness, everyone who was homeless is not mentally ill. And I think we put a stigma on the homeless because we want to say, oh, they have mental health issues. Everyone is homeless. I walk through and I'm hugging people who are homeless and speaking with them, and they're talking with me just like you and I are talking.
Margaret, I tell people all the time, the fact that you are homeless does not mean that you don't have a job.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
It does not mean that you don't have a job. Often, or many times, you do have a job, you just cannot afford the rents here.
Absolutely.
Or whatever place.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I see with the community is that everyone wants a solution for the homeless problem. It's a very complex issue, and right. Just giving a person a place to sleep does not resolve the homeless problem.
It does not.
We all want a solution for the homeless problem, but none wants a homeless shelter built in their neighborhood.
That's it.
I want a solution, but over there.
Right.
Okay. Right. Then they don't. Then we have the problem with you just described. People that are being released from incarcerations, they don't give them a second chance.
Right.
They cannot work for whatever reason, for the stagnant, for whatever. No one gives them a second chance. So it's a much complex problem than meets the eye. Absolutely,
absolutely. And I found that to be true because like I said, my background is criminal justice. I have a BS in Administration of Justice Legal Studies, and I worked with the Public Defender's Office for 10 years. And that was one of the things that I would say to my young men who were coming in at 15. Like, I handled all the first-degree murder cases, all low-level misdemeanors. I work for the public defender, so that's different than working for the attorneys in the office, because he's going to only deal with high-profile cases, right? And so that would be one of my things. Like, if I have to come in and talk to you and interview you and then begin investigating your case, the first thing I would say would be, if for a 15-year-old, if you get 25 years to life, and just by chance you get out in the 25-year span, what would you do? How would you survive? Because you're looking at young men who parents may be deceased by the time they get out, or families have moved away because usually they are housed, right, that disconnect. And so I talk to people who are a member of my church, you know, who have gotten out and trying to find jobs. I mean, jobs that are going to be able to provide a living wage. And it's hard. It's hard to find that type of employment. Even here in the city of Yonkers, a city that, you know, touts itself as being inclusive. So we have to begin to really market that in the right way, and choosing businesses, because I love what the bread company, I can't even think of the name right now, but what they do, and they hire ex-offenders to come in, and we need more businesses to open themselves up to that type of programming.
I agree with you. Since your background is in criminal justice, let's talk about youth crime.
Okay.
And things that affect every single one of us, because we never know who is going to be the next victim.
Absolutely.
And then we need to understand the root cause of that as well. Because you cannot solve a problem unless you understand the root cause of the problem. What do you think is the problem?
Education, because I always go back to education. I always go back to education. I just did an article piece that I sent out a couple of these places today, this morning. But what happens is that education becomes so paramount in so many issues of our lives. And in Yonkers, there is not a solid program other than what we do in the schools. MBK is touted as one of our premier programs for young men of color. MSK, which never gets any press, and I'm the coordinator for my elementary school, middle school. I do MSK, My Sister's Keeper, which is a pilot program that Michelle started with Obama. We don't talk enough about what the intent of MBK is and was. The intent of MBK was not for me to find someone like a Rue that's on the cusp of, not doing well in school, may have some hiccups at home. That was not the...
Are you a psychic?
That was not the premise of why he created the program. The program was created for young men that were in gangs or on the cusp of being in gang or jumped into gangs. He created the program for those underserved young men who may have disconnected from school, right? So this is why, but we have championed a program in our high schools that now is not really reflective of the intent. And so it is my hope as the mayor, it is my purpose as the mayor to change that program in itself, to really ensure that we're identifying youth in our community that is disconnected, disengaged, right? Being able to build mentorship programs here in such a way that students, young students, are more readily wanting to join that than a gang. We do have a gang crisis here in Yonkers. As quiet as it's trying to be kept, we do. I recognize it because criminal justice is my background. I know the nuances of how those initiations start. I deal with young people in the middle school, in my middle school. My husband teaches as a substitute at Roosevelt High School. So, hearing the conversations that his young men are having with him or the young ladies are having with him, I say, better watch that. Because I know how they indoctrinate them into gangs. And so they're not like it used to be, like the Bloods. It's not that kind of gang activity anymore. It's more of a social type of play now. So things are ran on the internet, and then, that group says, okay, this is what we're going to be representing. This is going to be our values. Because guess what? Gangs have values. They really do. It's not one of those unorganized kind of thing. They are seriously structured. They got hierarchy.
It's not like it used to be.
It's not, but it is. Because in their minds, this is how this is supposed to run. We're thinking it's just disjointed, like they just run up, kill. No, they have really sat there and planned this thing out. This is how we're going to go bust up some windows. This is how we're going to go steal. If we took that much energy and channeled it, I used to tell my clients, channel into something that's good, my goodness, you'll be a brain surgeon.
You have a fan here, Margaret, who's saying, I think you have her vote. Okay, it's Lynette McCain. I don't know who the person is.
Well, thank you, Lynette. I appreciate you.
And Lynette, the magic of social media is that interviews like these happen dynamically.
Or very organic.
Very organic.
Very
there is
organic.
no questions given to the candidate. She didn't ask me, what are you going to ask me? She said, ask whatever.
Ask whatever.
So, and I'm asking, but the magic here, it's actually there.
Absolutely.
Okay, is that you watch this interview and you can share it on your own page so your friends can see it. Your friends know the platform of these candidates, so they can make their own mind based on what they hear, based on what they see, based on does this candidate connects, understands my problems. I think that's very important.
It is.
Because I speak with lots of people, and lots of people talk about problems, but Margaret, they really don't understand the problem.
They don't.
Okay.
And I guess for me, as an individual who was born and raised in the South, I bring a different type of nuance to Yonkers because, you can hear the drawl. If I talk to you long enough, you're going to pick it up. You're going to say, oh, that's a Virginia drawl right there. But I think what has happened is that I am a tobacco girl, right? So my parents, I was born up on a farm. My parents were, in 1968, were able to purchase their first home, a Jim Walters home. They were one of the people, they were a young couple with 2 children trying to figure it out. 21 and 20 years old, trying to figure it out. And my parents have been married 60 years this coming September.
God bless them.
So I have a brother, 2 brothers, and coming and living in New York was like a big thing for me, right? I'm a Southern girl, North Carolina and Virginia. So coming to New York was a big thing because I didn't think that New York would experience or have the issues that the South would have, right? So they wouldn't have racism. They wouldn't deal with classism. They wouldn't deal with the isms of the world like the South. And then when we moved to Tuckahoe, and that was one of the reasons why I got involved politically, because I was seeing some things, even in that little village, which is a little hamlet that everybody thinks, you know, that's the Bronxville of the Bronxville. That's Bronxville Part 2. Didn't think that Tuckahoe would have issues that dealt with the isms. And that was one of the reasons I went into politics, because I was like, okay, we got to fix this. And then I was working on my education degree, and I said, and coming out of criminal justice, I didn't want to see children lost. So that's always been my focus. I don't want to see children lost, because people always say they're the future generation. No, they are the generation. We're the seasoned out. They are the generation. And if we don't fix it, if we're not voting correctly, if we're not advocating for them, then they are going to be a lost generation. And so I bring that kind of energy into politics. The same energy, if anybody's ever heard me preach, I bring that same energy, that same fire, that same passion, because I want the citizens of Yonkers to know I'm going to work for you. This mayor's office will no longer be closed off because of socioeconomic strata. It will not. It will be an open door policy.
And you have another supporter, I don't know if you know her, I don't, Magali Cervoni. Do you know that?
No.
Well, guys.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
now,
it.
Now, before we go further.
Are you giving me a bill? No, I'm just saying. You ate and you want to give it?
Before we go further, guys, I have to give a shout out to Giovanni's Pizzeria.
Yes.
Here at 25 Main Street. You know, and I have to thank them for allowing us to come here and do our interviews.
Absolutely.
But I always say actions, not words. And what I mean by that is that many of us talk about supporting our local vendors, supporting our people, supporting this and supporting that. But that support goes no further than the words that we are saying. I'm asking you to do a little more. Actions, not words. If you want to have a pizza, call Giovanni Pizzeria, 914-375-1429. Penny alla vodka, I heard it's unbelievable. I always have chicken marsala because that's my favorite, but I'm going to try the other one. Also, the best pizza in town. Order it, they deliver, you can pick up, or whatever. Actions, not words. Sponsor and support your local business.
Absolutely.
Let's do more than just talk about things. You know, the road to where is full of people with good intentions.
Right.
We need to do more than just talk about
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You do not want to debate me on that one?
No, I do not. That's a good point.
We are having an issue here in Yonkers, and that's the migrant issue. If you were the mayor, how would you have addressed that problem?
Do we have a problem? I'm not sure.
Well,
because I didn't know if we had.
Well, you don't have a problem.
No, I'm serious about that, because I thought, I didn't know if we had residents yes, we do. We do have residents that showed up. Yes, we have. We go back to housing again.
Well, the migrants, I'm talking about those migrants that just crossed the border.
Right.
Okay. Some people don't.
I know.
You're talking about issues, immigration issues, without a full understanding immigration laws.
Correct.
Okay. Those that are here, they are not illegals because they cross legally to a point of entry.
That's right. And that's the difference, because that is what our administration needs to say. They have not been clear, right? And that's what leaves this void of understanding, because there is a difference. And I think it's about, let me go back to my favorite, it's about education. And because we had a hypersensitive ex-president who use this issue to weaponize against people, against brown people, black and brown people coming into the country. He used it. And so you get a fashion in between residents. You got those who support, housing migrants coming in. You have those who are saying, oh, it's going to be a strain on our infrastructure, a strain on our educational system, strain strain across the board. But once we understand what you just nicely put out there, immigration, migrants, those who cross illegally, once we understand the nuances of that, if we were educated about that, then I think people will be able to understand why you have people who are receiving, right? Why you have different churches who are opening up their doors, why you having motels and hotels opening up their doors. But because it's not narrated correctly, because people aren't educated, then you have people that you're pushing them back. I mean, think about it. We are two people of color. Think about how many people wanted to deny access, to us, and will continue to deny access to us. So those are the conversations that need to be had, but we have to understand what we're talking about. And I think because we have people in political positions you are more informed than some of the people that are seated. Thank you. That's all I'm going to say.
On that note, look, we had a time slot for about 30 minutes for this interview.
Oh my goodness.
It's been over an hour.
Really?
It's been over an hour.
That's how wonderful you made it easy.
It was an organic conversation, I think very informative conversation. But I'm going to address one more point before giving you the honor of doing the closure.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about this moratorium that was just released today. I don't know if you got the memo yet.
No, I did not.
It was just released today. Unanimous approval by the Yonkers City Council establishes a temporary ban on the issuing the building permits and certificates of occupancy for the construction, establishment, and operations of new smoke and vape shops in Yonkers.
Okay.
The mayor applauds this. Do you join the applause or do you object the applause? If you were the mayor, what would be your position?
It's amazing. That's why I said the hypocrisy in that, because when marijuana became legal here in the city, in the state of New York, I do recall the mayor giving this press conference about welcoming this kind of change, and and that we're moving towards legalization, and welcoming businesses to come in and open up shops, welcoming people to come do this. The problem is that we put the cart before the horse instead of having all of those policies in place, having what the rules are going to be, what is going to be required of these shops to be open. Those things weren't put in place. So now we're saying, okay, now we got to close it all down. We got to go back and fix what we should have already had in place at the very beginning. So that's been a part of what's happened, over the tenure. Okay, you're going to ask me something else.
No. I apologize for interrupting. No, continue, because then I ask.
Yes, okay. So I think that's the issue. I think my thought process when it comes to vaping and the legalization of marijuana has been on the criminal justice side. And what I mean by that is that every black man, and I say this in all earnest, every man, black man especially, because black men and men of color, Latinos, have spent years in jail in the correctional facilities because of illegal marijuana, right? How do you write that? You should write that. Those records should be expunged. That's where my focus has always been. When the legalization came about, then that's where my focus has been. Like, what are we doing about that? Why aren't we having a conversation about that?
Valid point. Maybe we need to put pressure into our legislators to say, listen, okay,
I agree.
It's legal, so now expunge those. But in defense of the mayor, I have spoken to the mayor many times in press conferences about this, and he's not against marijuana, legal marijuana. His objection is about regulations
Right. And
but I agree with you. Then maybe we should have the regulations
first
before we legalize
right. Well,
it.
you know, we test driving something and then say, oh, by the way, let me go back and fix that.
Yeah.
Like when I start my classroom at September, I put my rules up. These are the rules that Ms. Coleman goes by in her classroom. And we reinforce those rules up until June 26th. So they don't know. So when someone makes an application for a business, they need to know what policies they need to adhere to in order for this business to be open. Then you can go back and say, okay, we're going to put a moratorium. We're going to shut you down. We can do all of that. A lot of these businesses were like, okay, what? Other than not selling to a youth, what other things are you talking about? What other things am I violating?
But that falls into Albany, correct?
Correct. But
not local.
Not local. However, he sits on a panel. You have that influence. You have our legislators right here, right across the road. I mean, you have access. So I'm not going to let you off the hook for that. No, not doing that.
Well, we have to conclude sooner or later. But you're going to have the honor of doing the
closing.
The closing.
Absolutely.
Talk to the people who are watching. Okay. This is an opportunity to reach thousands and thousands of people. By the end of the day, we're going to have a few thousand people watch this interview and probably share it. And maybe you're going to change a few minds, okay, of those who are watching. I always tell people, when I debate with somebody, I'm so hard-minded in what I think, and I know that my opponent is also hard-minded in the way that he or she thinks. We are not going to be able to change our mindset, but we might change the mindset of somebody who might be watching.
Absolutely.
So this is your closure. Address the people and let them know why you should be the next mayor. Because you would not just be the first female mayor, you would be the first African-American mayor in the city of Yonkers, if elected.
There was a first female. Y'all need to look at your history.
Okay, hey.
There was one.
There was one.
There was one. So on January 15th of this year, I stood at the War Memorial and I announced that I would be running here as a candidate on the Democratic ticket for the mayor here in the city of Yonkers. Through that conversation, through that announcement, I knew that it would be an uphill battle, and it has been. It has been a battle for the soul of Yonkers. And I say that not out of just saying it because it just sounds good, but it really is the soul of Yonkers. As I said to Rue earlier, you have to take a solid and a clear look at your life, the life of the children, the mothers, the fathers, and all those persons that you're interconnected with, and to say to yourself, has my life improved in 9 years or 12 years? And I keep going back to 9 because that's how long I've been here, and that's how long Councilperson Corazon Pineda-Isaac has been a councilperson here in the city of Yonkers. Mr. Mayor Spano has been in office for 12 years. What I've seen under his administration is self-grandized type of behavior. And what I mean by that is that as long as the developers are happy, then we're supposed to be happy. Well, I'm not happy, and that's why I'm running for the mayor of Yonkers. I am not a sideline person. I engage myself in our community. I am an educator here in the city of Yonkers. I have varied career experience and professional experience, organizational, supervisory experience. So all of those things, and I'm a political person as well, but all of those things make me ready to be your next mayor. I hope you would consider me. Early voting starts on Saturday, June 17th through the 25th, and then we'll have primary election on June 27th. I invite you to go to margaretformayor.com to see more about my platform. If you want me to come and sit and have a cup of coffee with you, I will do that. If you want me to come speak to your community group, I will do that. But I also invite you to come down to the BZAC on tomorrow night at 7:30 so that you can hear all three of us We will be there discussing issues that impact your life daily. And that's what we need to do. We need to move from just talking about the issues, as Ruth said, but being about the issues. I will fight for every Yonker person here in our city. So please consider me as your next mayor here in the city.
Again, guys, Yonkers Voice is not my voice. Yonkers Voice is the platform where your voice is amplified and where people like candidate Margaret Coleman and others can come sit down and talk to you about their platform so you can make an informed and educated decision about who is the best person to represent your principles and ideals. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share, spread it, and as always, Yonkers Voice does not endorse or oppose, we inform. Thank you to all.
Thank
Until
you.
next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.